if you're joining us for the first time, these events are all about empowering you with information so you can stay happy and healthy and take control of your own health. If you're watching it on YouTube, can I please ask you to leave us a little like and write a comment, as it helps us reach a wider group of people and spread the wellbeing wisdom. You can sign up for email notifications about upcoming live events by visiting our Wellbeing at Home website, the details of which are in the description. Okay, so today we are talking about homeopathy, which is a subject I've been wanting to cover for quite a while, as it seems to be shrouded in a little bit of mystery and controversy. And many people don't, or aren't, they know, but maybe not 100% clear on how it actually works, of which I count myself one of them. And I personally have limited experience with homeopathy, but I did try it on with my dog earlier this year, actually, which did help him for a while. But I've always really been intrigued by homeopathy. So today we have the opportunity to really explore it in detail with Jenya Di Pierro, which many of you will know from previous sessions. And if you don't know who she is, Jenya is the founder and CEO of the very beautiful Cloud 12 Wellness and Lifestyle Club in Notting Hill. If you haven't visited, I strongly suggest and recommend you do, because it's just to see the place. It's very beautiful. She's just obviously got a real eye for detail, and it's just designed beautifully, and they have some great treatments and therapists there. Jenya is actually the resident herbalist and homeopath there, and she's got qualifications in herbal medicine and homeopathy from the College of Naturopathic Medicine. And we'll find out later why Jenya chose this path to follow after leaving a career in finance. But if you have heard Jenya speak before, she's hugely knowledgeable about her subjects and always educates us. I call her a little bit of a walking encyclopedia. I don't know how she actually memorizes all the information that comes out of her mouth when she talks to us. Jenya, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
It's always such a pleasure to have wellness conversations with you, Stella. And yeah, I love the audience, and it has been always so interactive, and you've created a wonderful community and doing incredible things for the planet and for the world.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we try and do our part. It's all about empowerment, like I say, education, and then we can make our own decisions, right? But thank you so much for being with us. I know kind of getting our act together on a Saturday morning isn't always the easiest, and I'm lucky because I'm in Cyprus right now, so I'm 2 hours ahead. I had a bit more time to get my act together this morning. So yeah, I've been a bit more fortunate. Okay, let's start. Let's go right into the subject, and I'm just going to throw you in at the deep end. What exactly is homeopathy and how does it work? Let's ask that big question.
Well, we haven't got all of the answers, and that's why I think there's like a little bit of controversy and a little bit of naysaying about homeopathy. But essentially, homeopathy uses the energy of plants, minerals, animals to facilitate support to the vital force in the body, which supports self-healing of the body. So unlike supplements or herbs where you've got phytochemicals working on certain pathways in the body, homeopathy just works energetically. And if we look at a homeopathic pill, chemically speaking, is just sugar and water. But the starting point is the original substance, which has been diluted over and over and over to create the remedy. And the more it's diluted, actually, the more potent it is. So it's quite an extraordinary modality, which was discovered by Hahnemann about 200 years ago. And he was a doctor back then, observing various practices in medicine of that time, which were quite invasive and frankly harmful. So people were using mercury, bloodletting, that resulted in a lot of fatalities. And he had this genius idea to explore diluted forms of those remedies and to see whether that can heal, whether it can be kind of less concentrated but still very effective. So he started diluting various sometimes toxic substances and trying to cure a lot of diseases. And he tried a lot of it on himself. He was a very brave man, and I guess, like with Bach flowers, if you're familiar, sometimes substances, plants, minerals kind of speak to the person who is testing them, who is inventing them. So he started trying them and observing certain symptoms that actually these remedies would cure. So and this is how we discover the properties of the remedies in homeopathy. We take a completely healthy person and they take the remedy and they start experiencing certain symptoms, emotions, dreams, that give them an indication of what kind of imbalance this remedy is useful for.
I have to break some of that down because it's quite a lot to get our head around. So I'm just going to try and ad-lib this as I understood of what you just said.
Okay.
So they take a substance in homeopathy and they dilute it in sugar and water. And the more diluted it is, the more effect it has.
Exactly.
And that's the part I think logically people can't get their head around.
Yeah.
Because how on earth can that work?
Okay. First of all, I've got to say there are a lot of things in our world which we don't understand, right? There are a lot of things about quantum physics that haven't been proven. Some of them have been proven, but the energy is very difficult to comprehend, to measure, to test. And as I progress with my studies more and more, I kind of realized that we're trying to explain this world with our brain, but actually it's not the most superior way of understanding. There is intuition, there's the kind of higher energies and other bodies that potentially are more in tune of kind of what's going on an energetic level. And, I come from quant finance, so I actually love data. I worked with big data and I can understand the efficacy, but also pitfalls of statistical tests. And even in modern medicine, many of the trials that they've done cannot be replicated because they're subject to assumptions. Everybody's individual, so different characteristics of each person come into play and so on. So even when we do kind of that rigorous testing, it's not always crystal clear and linked to the outcome. But with regards to energies, you just have to believe in it. And all of us have sixth sense and intuition. If we were, for example, to close our eyes and the person would come into a room in, let's say, complete darkness, if we concentrate, we calm our energy and are able to tune in, I'm sure most of us will be able to tell whether that person is on the right or to the left. We know that things exist beyond our five senses. We kind of know that, right? We just don't have the exact proof of it necessarily. And so what happens with homeopathy, so we take a substance, we dilute it over and over, and then we succuss. So because the homeopathy diluted in water, and water transfers the information and kind of spreads it, and that's what I guess makes it potent, where there might not be the molecule of that substance, but the information still transferred across with the help of the water. Maybe I can give you an example of one remedy. It's the one which is not widely used. It's one of the new remedies, so it's a little bit out there, but I feel like it helps people to understand what's happening energetically when you take a homeopathic remedy. So the remedy is called Berlin Wall. And it's literally made from the Berlin Wall, from the time when the wall fell down. And the way you make it, you take a fragment of that wall, you kind of crush it, you mix it in a cauldron, with water and sugar, and then you take a spoonful of that in another kind of water and sugar solution, mix it again and again and again, and you succuss. So succussion is kind of shaking it, which allows for the information to transfer. And so this remedy is given to people who are closed and need to liberate themselves. So it can be people who afraid of public speaking, or maybe gay people who need to come out and tell the whole world and be kind of brave and aligned with their identity. So, it calls this similar energy of what was happening at the time with the Berlin Wall when it fell down, and it helps people to liberate themselves from their fears and phobias and certain anxieties.
I'm just interrupting this event to invite you to join our Wellbeing at Home mailing list. Join the list and you'll be notified in advance of any events that we've got going on, where you can join the live discussions and ask any questions you may have. Find out how to do that in the description below. Enjoy the rest of the event. Wow. Wow. I mean, that is so fascinating. I never thought I'd be having a conversation about taking fragments of the Berlin Wall and making it into a remedy. But I get it, I think, because it's the energetic memory, right, which then gets transferred through the water that carries that energetic memory. And I guess if you don't believe in energy, you're never going to believe in homeopathy, because we're so materialistic. We're materialists. Sorry, not materialistic. We're materialists. We're brought up, we're conditioned to be materialists, in that we can only believe what we can see, as you say, or feel or touch with our senses. But how about our senses that we're not, our sixth sense, as you say, our intuition and other senses? And this work that was done about water memory, someone mentioned it in chat as well, was it Yamamoto, it was a professor in Japan who did a whole load of work on the memory of water, right? And the images of water depending on the outside environment. Do you know of that work?
I do. I've heard, but I can't really speak of the details.
Yeah. It's anyway. It is. It's. I can follow up later. I've forgotten. I think it's Professor Yamamoto, and you can see images where the water was placed in an angry environment. The images of the cells of the water were not in a kind of harmonious pattern. Whereas if it was in a kind environment, for example, it's quite a big ask for a lot of people to expand their minds to think about that. And I understand why there is the controversy, but interestingly enough, in India, this is a homeopathy is a major strand of their medicine, and it's recognized by the government, and it is part of, kind of their national medical practice alongside Ayurveda. I guess that is also very much about energy. It's not just about the plants, but I guess yoga's about energy, and so is meditation. Ultimately, it's not just about physical movement. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm herbalist by my first training, right? Well, by my first training, I'm economist, and then that's why I'm so comfortable speaking about energies and stuff, because I worked with data and I know its limitations, and I know that it just can't explain even physical world in some situations. But with regards kind of to energies, we know that a lot of disease, for example, in naturopathy starts on the energetic level, on the emotional and mental level. So before anything is wrong with the body, there already is some things happening that affect us, and then you kind of end up with a physical imbalance. So while and actually in herbal medicine as well, it's very difficult to do tests because everybody is individual, and in naturopathy you never treat the disease, you always treat the person. So there's not so much proof similar to modern medicine, but there's anecdotal evidence going back centuries. So in some way there's so much more proof that these things work. And then of course in our clinical practice we see the most amazing transformations. I mean, even when I was a student, I remember a case where a woman came to me, and she was anorexic and didn't have her periods. And at that stage, she was off work. She didn't see any point to leave. And she wasn't suicidal, but she was just kind of disinterested in life. And I've given her homeopathic remedy. And 2 weeks later, she comes back and says, oh, wow, I'm back to work. I'm making plans. I'm interested in life. And I started seeing people. And I literally, I couldn't believe it. Like each time you see that in clinic, you just cannot believe it. And more importantly, I thought, what pill or what therapy can give that transformation that quickly? Like, how can you return to someone a will to live, an interest in life, just like that?
Can I ask you a question about that? Because
Yeah.
the skeptics will say, okay, it's all placebo effect. But did you tell her that that remedy would have that reaction?
No.
You just gave her a remedy and said, just try this. And she didn't really know what that would do for her.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's always placebo effect or nocebo for that matter. But homeopathy works on kids. Homeopathy works on animals.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of the answer to those people who think that it is just placebo. But the way it works, which is very, very interesting. So essentially, what you need to find, you almost never, there's a first aid homeopathy, which is a slightly different topic, but you almost never kind of treat a particular symptom. What you're trying to find for the most profound level of healing, you're trying to find a constitutional remedy which matches mental, emotional, physical characteristics of a person. So you're trying to kind of find the remedy, and there are 3,000 remedies, so it's quite an investigative work. And sometimes there are a lot of layers, especially if a person has been sick for a long time and they've got various blockages, so you can't just give them one remedy, you need to kind of peel it, and it takes time. I still remember the podcast with this Indian homeopath who was seeing a woman for alopecia for 5 months. So he'd give one remedy in quite a low potency once a month, nothing happens. Then another remedy once a month, next month, and so on. And of course, when she would come back, she would give some clues. I had this reaction of that. So you kind of narrow down your choices and thinking of some other strategies. So finally, on month 5, he gave her the remedy, and alopecia went. And he was, complimentary of her resilience, that she kept coming back when kind of nothing was happening. But sometimes there are certain layers you have to peel first. But in essence, for many, many people, there's just remedy that matches their constitution at that time. And wait for this remedy can basically clear any imbalance that this person has. So it will give this kick to the vital force of the body that will then self-heal. And remove some blockages that the body has. And the reason that I got into homeopathy, when I was a herbalist and naturopath and I studied functional medicine and so on, was that I would have patients in clinic who would come, and I would ask them, how did it start? You always need to ask, how did it start? It gives you clues to the cause of the problem and so on. And they would say, well, my diabetes started when I lost my mother. Or, my Crohn started when I went through divorce. And as a naturopath, how do I heal that? There's no herb for that, right? And so I kind of gained an understanding that in so many chronic cases, we've got this trauma or toxicity. Sometimes it can be vaccines. Unfortunately, I have those experiences in my clinical practice, or long-term use of antibiotics, or some genetic, in fact, kind of blockages and layers. And once you realize that lays there, even if people don't think about it and don't kind of remember about it on a day-to-day basis, but in my experience, once you have that trauma, it actually affects every day of your life, in the decisions that you make, in the emotions that you go through, in fears and phobias and everything else, how you express yourself. And that is a really, really big blockage to bringing the body back to balance. And then I knew that I needed to discover something that helps to work on those blocks. And of course, we've got other modalities that help. We've got therapy, like psychotherapy. We've got some breathing techniques. You can do some regressions where you go back to that moment and, change the energy of that emotion in that moment and so on. But for me, homeopathy is the most intuitive and kind of, it acts fast. When it acts, it's literally overnight. So the person calls me and says, I had the biggest cry of my life, and next day I woke up and the burden was lighter, and that's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary tool for someone who works with diets and plants and various kind of phytochemicals to reach to that mental emotional layer, which is so important. That's often where disease starts.
Can I ask you something? When people come in for a homeopathic consultation, or they want to address their issues through homeopathy, do they know what it is, or are they just think, okay, I'm going to try something, it's a complementary form of medicine I'm going to try?
Quite often people do know what it is.
Okay.
Sometimes because they come to me for herbal and kind of naturopathic assessment, they don't. Sometimes they don't believe in it. I'm actually really surprised how few people in the UK know about it.
Yes, it's true. Can I ask you, the people who don't believe in it, have you managed to treat anyone who doesn't believe in it, and has it worked on them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
You really don't need to believe in it, because also it was kind of interesting. I treated one person for something, I can't even remember what it was, to be honest. I think some period, like hormonal imbalances. And she's got a very scientific mind, and we were doing it. I'm her friend, so she's a nutritionist. So I said, look, let me help you. You're going through some tough times and so on. And I've given her this remedy, and she called me the next day and she says, I can't believe it. My hip got better. My hip was hurting for 6 months, and sometimes actually various aches and pains that we have in our body, it's kind of the way our body communicates with us. So when there's something unaddressed or unsaid or trauma or something, then certain things flare up. So she had that hip situation, and I was actually surprised because I didn't give her that remedy for the hip. I've taken into account her personality, you know, her overall state, the stress that she was going through. So I added all of these characteristics, and the remedy kind of matched. And what I actually given her remedy for trauma. And then she calls me and says, my hip started clicking. I went for a walk, and then it was making this incredible noise, crack, 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 crack. And then in 1 hour, you know, it was better. And she was someone who, you know, nutritionists, they work with a lot of tests, and it's quite scientific. They look at the pathways and various, you know, conversion cycles in the body and so on. So they're very scientifically oriented in that sense. And she didn't expect, she almost kind of, she was not interested. She didn't ask for it. I said, look, let me support you a little bit. And she almost reluctantly kind of agreed. And now she's talking about homeopathy to everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't worry about it. I don't care if people don't believe in it. And you know, sometimes also it's fair to say doesn't work like that, because there are 3,000 remedies. Sometimes you find a match like this and it does something, and then you're getting closer and closer and closer. So it takes a few sessions. Sometimes you've got lots of blockages, so you need to, and sometimes the level of health of a person is so low that, well, for any discipline, it's very, very difficult to bring that vital force back. So if they're on a lot of pharmaceutical medications, for example, it's really hard. But by Hahnemann, it's considered to be a very strong obstacle to cure, because...
Okay, that was one of my questions to you, because can you take it alongside
Absolutely,
conventional medicine? I mean, pharmaceuticals.
So the good thing about homeopathy, and you know, I'm really grateful also we have that tool for that reason, that it can combine with any pharmaceutical drugs. You know, if people have allergies, if people cannot take any drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, or even herbs. So for example, pregnant women or little babies. And this is one tool that I have that I can use safely, because it's basically sugar and water. With regards to medication, does combine with medication, but pharmaceutical drugs suppress our vital force. And I can explain to you, maybe just to give you an easy example, when we have fever, and we take anti-inflammatories. So fever is the way for our body to fight pathogens, right? And when we suppress it, basically pathogens multiply, because basically we disabled our defense mechanism against them. So what it means that the disease takes longer to leave the body, and it can also become kind of chronic. So it goes into deeper levels of the body. And in homeopathy, we always are like this question asked at every consultation: when was the last time you had high fever? And by that I mean 38.5 or higher. And what I really want to hear is that this happened within the last 2 years, because this is a very, very good test of a person's vital force. That means that their army is ready. When you have the invaders, they're ready to fight it, and they are able to correct various imbalances and stresses by spiking fever. And fever also, when a person has fever, it's like a detox for the body. It's cleansing. You've got lots of stuff coming out. A lot of lingering infections will die out. So it kind of cleanses everything in the body. That's why it's so important kind of not to suppress it. And so many people who are chronically ill, 90% would tell me, I never get high fever. I have a little, like a lingering, a little bit of a 37.5, but it never goes high. And for me, it's a sign of a very kind of weak vital force. It means we have to go with very low potencies. We have to go gently. There's a lot of work needed to kind of wake it up. And so the danger of pharmaceutical drugs from that perspective is that they prolong the disease and they push it to more important organs. So for example, when you have eczema, it's a way for the body to detoxify and to kind of get rid of some of the imbalances that are happening, you know, on liver, lymph, gut level, right? So when we try to mask it, those diseases, they get more and more pronounced, more and more chronic, and so on. So basically, when we suppress in that way, we push it deeper and the job becomes harder. And then energetically also kind of drugs are misaligned with homeopathy. And, you know, just a disclaimer that drugs saved my life. You know, I had appendicitis and so on. So they have absolutely their role to play. And modern medicine does save lives. But I believe for chronic cases, it can be a little bit counterproductive.
Okay, so for chronic disease, I guess, and that's again, life-threatening disease. But I guess we've been conditioned to take a pharmaceutical. We just don't want the symptom. We don't want to deal with the symptom. So it has an immediate effect on the symptom, but it then inhibits the root cause being dealt with, because you've managed the symptom immediately, but then you have inhibited the root cause. And you know, on your example about fever can be dangerous though, right? So shouldn't we deal with it if it's an ongoing, if it doesn't come down? I mean, this is just a general question, but how long should we allow ourselves to be having a really high temperature?
Look, I'm not extremely brave in these situations. So especially when it comes to babies. So I think 24 hours is safe. Many homeopaths would tell you 3 days is safe. I'm a little bit more cautious. So, you know, we want to allow our body to fight as much as we can tolerate it when we are, you know, adults, for example. Having said that, there are sepsis situations that you need to deal with within 24 hours. So, I mean, with sepsis, of course, there can be pre-existing conditions, you know, people can be diabetic and so on, and they really need to call an ambulance. And also, you know, when you have sepsis, people who are intuitive with their body, they know it's the sepsis kind of fever is the fever you cannot tolerate. It's a next level of suffering, even though it can be 39, like in other kind of flu situation. So I'm not saying that each time you have high fever, you should not do anything about it. You should be intuitive with your body. You should know kind of, you know, are you suffering from recurrent kidney infections? So there are a few situations that that are often linked to acute status like sepsis. And that needs to be dealt with drugs pretty much within the 24 hours.
So I guess the message is, don't indiscriminately to just take a painkiller, an anti-inflammatory or something immediately, and let yourself go through some of the symptoms until the point where you feel it's just maybe, you know, scary for you or a little bit dangerous, and then, you know, then seek to do that. But you know, like I say, we have been conditioned to not allow ourselves to feel anything. And I personally feel that people have lost, I'm generalizing, of course, but a lot of people have lost their ability to really connect with their own bodies and their own health. And they've given their power away to experts and other people telling them how, you know, what to do and what they should take and how they should feel. Whereas I think you need to understand that yourself. It's interesting that you said that in the UK you're surprised just at how few people know this. And I think, you know, I was researching this a little bit, because in France I believe it's quite popular. In Germany it's quite popular, homeopathy. In India we've discussed, but there seems to have been a concerted effort to shut it down in the UK and in America. I think probably driven by the pharmaceuticals, if I put my cynical hat on. But but it has, you know, I remember when my child, my son, he was asthmatic, and when he was a child, I got him referred to a homeopath. Now you can't do that on the NHS. I mean, it was many years ago, and I could do that, but they've shut it all down. And you know, King Charles now got into a lot of trouble by continuing to endorse homeopathy, and he really is a big believer, and he's a patron of a homeopathic body. So I feel like there was a concerted effort. It was taken more seriously before, but it's just been kind of rubbish now as a scam, and people are spending money on things that there's just no scientific value to. But I think you've explained it really interestingly, and it all comes back to that feeling of understanding that there is more than what we can just see or data, as you say. Coming to homeopathy, which conditions do you think it helps the most?
Okay, I would say any.
Okay.
Yeah, as a naturopath, I actually always start with herbs. But in my career, I was really surprised how certain things I could only solve with homeopathy, certain things I could only solve with herbs, and certain things with diet. So you know, it was kind of interesting where I had this endometriosis patient who just wouldn't give up gluten, and we've tried everything, and you know, symptoms wouldn't go. So until she actually did give up gluten, so it was the dietary change that sealed the deal. We were making some progress, but then didn't get the final improvement until that. I had situations where a person with rheumatoid arthritis would take herbs, and within days their pain went, and I was like, how is this possible? We haven't done the diet yet, you know, haven't done all these building blocks of wellness yet, but it worked. And so and then I had people who had this deeply rooted, if I find mental emotional kind of situation where the person is so depressed, I know that no matter what I give them, if they have mental emotional trauma, they will not be even able to assimilate supplements or herbs or, you know, healthy diets. So until I improve their mental emotional state, I won't be able to make progress as a practitioner. So, you know, I tend to always use homeopathy for emotional trauma. However, I wanted to show you, I also use the first aid box. This is from Ainsworth's, but you can also get it from Helios, and there are basically 30 plus remedies here. And I can just kind of show you, it's like a little bottle with little white peels. And actually, if you, let me just show you very quickly. So the way I make them, I've got this is liquid, and it's a dilute, it's a diluted but kind of liquid medicating potency, we call it. And so to create a remedy for my patients, I take sugar pills and I put a few drops, and then I shake it, and kind of I create that remedy and I give them. And I these days I always travel with this first aid box. And I can give you an example, which might some people might find useful. So this can be used for fevers, for food poisoning, for you know, sting bites, for injuries. And there's a little booklet which will explain. So if you've been, you know, hit and you've got a major bruise, you should take arnica. I think most people kind of know that. If you have a severe poisoning and diarrhea and vomiting, you should take arsenicum. And interestingly, we know arsenic and arsenic poisoning has that kind of manifestation. You're going to have a severe diarrhea and vomiting. And so this is how we know that diluted arsenic would be able to treat that situation, right? And then we've got our fever remedies, aconite, belladonna, gelsemium. And once we went to a countryside with my husband, and I take it everywhere, but it was our wedding anniversary. And we went for a walk, and he came down with fever, like really high one, which made me happy to begin with, because it was 38 and a half. But then we were going for dinner, and it was our wedding anniversary. So I was like, what do we do? And men, they don't have huge tolerance for pain and fevers. So at that point, he was screaming, "Give me drugs, give me drugs!" And he loves herbs, he loves homeopathy, but when he's kind of well and healthy, and so I kind of thought, okay, well, I want him to get better quickly. And we asked the hotel. Hotels are not allowed to give anti-inflammatories these days. And then pharmacies were shut. And I was like, yes, this is the time for homeopathy. and so I've given him aconite. And aconite is the remedy. It is poisonous in proper dose, but diluted form is used in homeopathy. So it's very good for fevers that have sudden onset. So it just comes out of nowhere, boom. Children often have it because children have very healthy vital force. So it comes across pathogens, reacts straight away, and they burn through it quite quickly. So I was like, sorry, we only have homeopathy. This is your way to get better today. And to my surprise, he took it, and he was on his feet within 30 minutes. He was fine. It was gone.
Wow.
And it did not come back the next day. When you're coming down with the flu, you take anti-inflammatories for a few hours, then it spikes again. Right. So I thought, okay, what do we do next day? He's probably going to be, under the weather, Nothing. He was full of energy. And I have maybe to also tell you, homeopathy has very different mechanism of action. It does not suppress, but what it does, it magnifies the symptom and makes it leave your body quicker. So in this way, it acts very different to drugs. And in a fever situation, you might have also with children where it will go, 1 point higher or 5 points higher, maybe it will go to 39 or 39 and a half. But then the body will burn through it quicker, and then it will leave. So
really interesting. I've had a question. Someone's asked me to ask you. Can it help with osteoarthritis?
It can. So my overall response to that would be it gives self-healing mechanism to the body to correct any imbalance. And so in theory, there's no disease that it cannot help. But with regards to osteoarthritis, of course, I would be using homeopathy alongside diet and some kind of supplements and looking at anti-inflammatory herbs and so on. So I would not use it as one tool, but the answer is yes, it can cure any disease. And actually,
alongside the other changes that need to be made. Okay, interesting.
I need to tell you, in my experience, I believe that every disease can be cured, but not every person can be cured. There are reasons why some people don't get better. They might be, it can come down to some comfort that people get from the disease. We get some support and some sympathy from people surround us. We might get some benefits, economically and so on. So even though we kind of want to get better, but there's also some comfort. But also there can be some blockages, you know, related to self-love, related to people's belief that they're not worthy to get better. All of these things come into play. So you know, quite often in naturopathy, you need time and patience, and you need to work on it. So I would say you need, if you have anything chronic, you need to work very hard for 3 months with the practitioner on this journey. And that will not only make you, you know, comply better, and you go always in stages, you know, you look at the diet, you look at the mental emotional state, you look at the toxic state, and look at everything in your environment, or you deal with the gut first and then you deal with hormones, and so it goes. So that takes time, and sometimes you know, I actually have a knee problem right now from my kind of snowboarding days, and this physiotherapist is making me jump on trampoline 10 minutes every day. And oh my God, it's the hardest thing to incorporate in your lifestyle. You think 10 minutes, he's like, everyone has 10 minutes, but no, it's hard. And it changes my morning routine that I've had for years, and, you know, all of that. So it's not easy. You need determination, but also when you work for 3 months, little by little, it's telling the universe, I'm ready to get better. I'm on a journey to be well. And as you work with practitioner kind of frequently, it's also manifestations that, believe it or not, work. I do believe in it, and I've seen it work in practice. Yeah, so to answer your question, it's possible to cure, absolutely, but everyone is on their journey, and
so there are different reasons. I mean, I remember many years ago when I was much younger, and I didn't really have much understanding about any of this, and I actually didn't really believe much in it in my younger life, and I had horrendous hay fever, and I reached out, like I think, I can't remember what it was, but I got some homeopathic remedies and they didn't work, and then I decided it was all rubbish, and it didn't work because I wanted instantaneous results, and of course there were other things in play there. So it is a very holistic approach, I guess. But then, as you say, your husband, it solved his issue immediately. So I guess we're all individuals, and it depends on what we're dealing with, and if it's chronic. You know, there's a note in the chat here. This is great. I don't know, this is from a Zoom user. When my son was young, he had warts all over his body, and doctors said there was nothing they could do. We took him to a homeopath, and in a short while, his skin was completely clear. I mean, there you go, amazing. And I think, like you said earlier, a child or an animal responds probably much more to this because they don't maybe have those mental and emotional blocks that other people could possibly put in play.
So I would say I sense that you know, that was your particular issue, but also I would say children react really well because their vital force is strong normally.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
drugs. So you would react really well. And, you know, it's possible that Thuya was given, which is one of the water remedies. And you know, in this toolkit, we use it, and there is a pollen mix for, you know, hay fever, but this is almost used superficially. So this is totally okay for you to go and try. They're very low potencies. They're kind of first aid and so on. But if you want to do kind of deeper work on yourself, then you really need to go to the specialist who would look at the multitude of various things that go on. And I don't want to complicate this any further, but Hahnemann later in life, he was a real genius. And he was a German doctor, actually, who discovered homeopathy, and then he kind of developed it. He also discovered the theory of miasms, which is very difficult to explain, but it's almost kind of our genetic code in some way. And maybe the easiest miasm to explain, well, there's a cancer miasm, which becoming easy nowadays, but tuberculinum, or you know, linked to tuberculosis. So there's a tubercular miasm, which people carry through generations and generations. So to identify that, you would ask, you know, obviously in the old days, people will have tuberculosis, but in our days, you know, people will be suffering from chest infections and pneumonia and so on. And you would see it in some kind of behavior. These are people who get bored very quickly from their normal environment. They love to travel, they love to kind of change the environments and so on. So there are some kind of character traits come into play. But anyhow, quite often what happens, you're trying to treat the person and their layers, but at the core of it is a, let's say, tubercular miasm. And sometimes that goes through generations. And sometimes until we address that, we might not be able to successfully peel all of the layers.
So that those genetic, the genetic code. That's so interesting. It's so, gosh, it's such an interesting subject. I've got another couple of questions because we're running out of time a little bit. Menopausal symptoms. I would imagine it'd be very good for menopausal symptoms, right?
Yes, it's one of my favorite topics because actually I specialize in hormonal health and autoimmune health. And yeah, as you know, we just did an event on menopause where we a little bit about it. Again, I would never say that for this you use this, but one remedy that would be used a lot for menopausal symptoms is sepia. And sepia made from cuttlefish ink. And essentially, it is the remedy. It's called wash a woman remedy. Back in the day, right? When women used to work very, very hard. And at some point, they'd come to a point in their life when they've had enough of their family. They're so frustrated. They become very irritable. Their libido goes down. They still love their family, but they just can't bear all the kind of stress that comes with it. And sometimes it can resemble, you know, the state in menopause where you've been looking after a family all your life, and then, you know, you're just exhausted. You just want to take the time for yourself. And actually, you know, I view menopause as this extraordinary period in women's life where they start to flourish, where they have no obligations anymore to their family. They can put themselves first. They can start new projects. They've got the wisdom of all of those years. So it's an amazing time, but they can't go, it's often linked to progesterone decline, actually, biochemically speaking, because that's our happy hormone that first starts to go, and then all other uncomfortable symptoms appear, which actually they don't have to appear if you are in balance, if you prepare well for menopause. But anyway, when they do, you get so frustrated and irritable and all those characteristics that resemble sepia. And sepia also, so it's one very, very popular hormonal remedies because it's linked to either very painful, clotty, copious periods, heavy periods, or actually even kind of absence of periods and so on. So I would be considering one of those that remedy if the woman in front of me exhibits that type of behavior.
Yeah, okay.
Completely other behavior in menopause, and there would be a completely different remedy.
Right. I mean, I think from what I'm hearing here, it doesn't sound you should self-treat or self-diagnose here. I think you really need access to someone who knows what they're talking about and has all this information and can help guide you. I have another question. Non-essential dystonic tremor. I don't know what that is actually.
Yeah, could you give us a few examples, maybe?
I don't know what that is. Yeah, maybe Gita, you can tell us what that is. Jane says it's important to replace. Is it important to replace remedies when they go out of date?
Actually, homeopathy never expires.
Interesting.
The energy stays there forever. I did throw a few remedies out of my chest because back in the, well, I can show you now. I've got this wonderful wooden chest.
Yes,
I've got all of my, well, these are medicating
wow.
potions. So these are the drops. And yeah, this is here I've got my sugar pills, and then I use these little bottles.
You really are an alchemist there, aren't you?
So I've got like, these are my homeobotanicals, but this is for a different seminar. We'll
Yeah.
so basically, I once put it in a box from like some soaps or something, and it was smell. So it mixed with other aroma, and that can kind of destroy the energy. You know, if that aroma gets into my bottle, it's going to distort the energy.
Okay. Yeah.
Why we say don't take homeopathy, you know, with food or coffee or other supplements. If you put face cream on your hand, don't put then the pill and then put in your mouth. So often you will open the bottle, you'll put a few pills in a cap, and then you put it you know, in your mouth in that way. And you know, when you're giving it to a child as well, don't put it in your hand, because then your energy would be transferred to the pill.
Yeah.
And so you know, if it will be exposed to something aromatic, for example, or even, you know, some people are quite strict, they say don't take it on a plane, you know, don't expose it to radiation or go through through metal detector with it. Having said that, I've traveled with it on a plane, and it still works.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there are certain situations where maybe you can disable the power, or you know what you can do? You can wrap it in foil that will protect it during the plane travel. Yeah, but essentially it should never expire.
Interesting. Okay. Jeeta's told us now it's a shaky hand. I thought it was actually in her case only the right hand. Gets worse in stressful situations. Actually, my mother has this too.
Yeah, so some of the remedies, absolutely, homeopathy is good for that. So some of the remedies that I would be looking at, one that comes to mind is causticum, which is a mineral, and it's again comes with the characteristics of a person. These people are kind of very in control. They're known for being very sensitive to social injustice, so that they're the ones that get very upset by the news on TV. They'll go to rallies, they'll get a little bit kind of rigid and, you know, disturbed in that way. And then it comes with a lot of shakes and tremors and twitching and so on. So if the mental emotional characteristics fit, causticum would be a good one. Another one is either arsenicum or argentum nitricum. These remedies are here, and they are used for all sorts of anxiety. So argentum nitricum is very known for fear of public speaking. You know, a lot of actresses and singers who suffer from stage fright, it would be kind of very appropriate to that. You can have fear of heights, so a lot of fears and phobias. And arsenicum as well, it's a remedy that, as I said, often given for like diarrhea and some of the digestive concerns, but also a lot of different types of anxieties. And if that's the trigger and that comes with the tremors, then yeah, I'll consider that. So there'll be, I don't know, 5-6 remedies I would be considering.
Perfect. Actually, I was giving causticum to my dog. I have no idea why, but the homeopathic, well, the natural vet knew why, so that's fine.
I think it's the hardest for me. It's the hardest to treat animals, because I remember I was trying to diagnose my dog. So for me, a very important clue is, how do you react around people? Do you like people, or do you prefer to be in your own space? I mean, guess what? All dogs like people. That's not a differentiator for me. All dogs want to, and then appetite. You know, do you have high appetite? And then you know, all dogs pretty much like to eat, and then you cannot ask them, is it itchy, is it hot?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, it's difficult, but this
oh
man had many years experience and spent quite a lot of time trying to understand the dog and his character. It was very interesting. I'm trying to get him to come on, actually. I want him to talk about the natural way of treating animals. Okay, one final question from Helen that she asked earlier. Is there any specific sugar used in the initial preparations? Some homeopathic pills are lactose-free, but most are not. Why? What is the difference between vodka, brandy, and vinegar in the sprays? Oh, there's a lot in that question.
Okay, so essentially there are different types of preparations just for kind of different situations. So for example, lactose pills dissolve really well, really quickly. So you might, they might be appropriate for a baby that you need so that the sugar pill doesn't get stuck in their throat. Although there are ways to crush the pill, but also for the babies there is a powder that you can use. So it's not necessarily a different efficacy, it's just kind of different situations and obviously when people are lactose intolerant, majority of them are just sugar pills, so you can just use that. Normally actually in homeopathy, high percent alcohol, ethanol is used as a preservative, but essentially well, you don't want to bring characteristics of flavors and things into the remedy, right? So in theory you want to use the purest alcohol, but also I would suggest you just buy it from the pharmacy that made it according with the rules and use the correct substances and so on. You know, as a herbalist as well, I make my own. You know, right now I'm making like hawthorn and rosehip brandy. I put lots of spices. I pick the spirit that I like. It's a nice, enjoyable drink and so on. But in my clinical practice, I buy from a herbal dispensary that formulated it with all the right percentages and all the right, you know, types of alcohol and so on. So in a sense, it doesn't matter what alcohol you use because it's got this preservative kind of nature, but it needs to be pure. It can be flavored and so on.
Right. Wonderful. Oh, I told you she was a walking encyclopedia. Anyway, so much information there. Now, you offer homeopathic, naturopathic, herbal consultations. Do you do it all in one, or can someone come and just do?
Yeah, so for chronic cases, I offer kind of naturopathic consultations and programs.
Okay.
And part of my 3 months program, I would always add homeopathic consultation. So my consultations, the naturopathic consultation is £200 and the naturopathic program is £1,150. But I also do just homeopathic consultations. If person just wants to do homeopathy, it's £140. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to offer discount to your wonderful database of 20%.
Yeah.
So it's possible to just do homeopathic assessment. And I mean, I might give a few advices on that along the way because I might be able.
You can't help yourself. I know. Yes, she can't help herself.
You know, naturopathic takes longer because I would write treatment plans and supplement, you know, just so many hours of work. And with homeopathic, normally, you know, we do an assessment, then I will spend some time after the consultation thinking about appropriate remedy. And, you know, I started also using intuitive methods of healing, which is really powerful because you kind of combine it with the knowledge that you have, and then it's the best of both worlds. And I kind of maybe wanted to also, my final word to everyone, first of all, you need to be intuitive with your bodies, and you need to believe that all of you have this insight and the intuition. If you calm yourself with some breathing technique or meditation, you're able to ask yourself a question, even about what's the appropriate what are the next steps for me to get better. And you might be able to hear the answer also for your pets, but for yourselves. So you all have this innate intuition in you. I know that some of us need to develop it a little bit more in order to be able to hear and get those messages, but you can all intuitively know is it the right strategy for you? Will it heal you? And you know, if you're confident that that's your way, don't worry about clinical trials and things like that. Homeopathy very rarely goes wrong. It might magnify certain symptoms for a period of time, a short period of time, and then it will leave your body, as I explained. But it is quite gentle. So
there's no side effects. It won't do you any harm. Okay, so if somebody wants homeopathic or any type of consultation with Jenya, they can contact you at Cloud 12.
Yeah.
If you use the code Wellbeing Escapes, Jenya will give you a 20% discount.
Exactly. And you can also contact me personally at Jenya Di Pierro, which is my Instagram.
Okay.
So I reply to that mailbox, and also on my website there are contact details. So Cloud 12 Jenya Di Pierro is my page, and then I do 15 minutes consultations as well, complimentary. You can just phone on Thursdays in the mornings, where I can give you a very quick discovery call to discuss your symptoms and choose the appropriate strategy for you.
Can you do the consultations online, or do people have to come in? You can. Okay, good. So it's easy to do that. Perfect. Thank you so much. I could go on for another hour with you actually on this. There's so much there. And
I can confuse you. It takes
no. I mean, it's for me, I've always had this. I was intrigued by it, but I've never really delved into this, where I have done into naturopathy, herbs, you know, all these others. And I think it was just because I couldn't get my head around it. But then I did, you know, when you explained it at the beginning about energetically and all of that, and I understand it, and I believe so much more in this now than I did, say, 25 years ago or 20 years, you know, 25 years ago. I just didn't. But I think as we get older and wiser, we do open ourselves up to more possibilities, and we also understand ourselves better, which certainly I've done as I've got older, really try to understand myself. And that point where you said, ask yourself what you need, I'm a firm believer in that. And I do that actually sometimes before I go to bed at night, and I kind of just do some calming breathing, and before I go to bed, and I say, tell me, show me. And sometimes it can come through in your dreams. Sometimes it can come through the next day when you're doing something and you get a thought or an intuition. And I think we need to stop rubbishing this intuition and saying, oh, it's just woo-woo rubbish. It's so relevant. And I know most people who come along here understand that and also agree to it. So agree with it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure as always. And thank you everyone for coming along. Hope you have a beautiful weekend. All right. Lots of love, everybody. Take care.